Hey y'all, it is your favorite host, Attorney Jay, and welcome back to Faces of Divorce, the podcast that helps you divorce differently. We don't just talk papers and court dates over here, we talk purpose, peace, and picking up the pieces with power. Today, we are getting into something a lot of you have DM'd me about child support and alimony. Yes, we are going to get into it. We are talking coins, care, and calling. Because believe it or not, your checkbook and your calling are not at war. Whether you're newly separated or knee deep in family court, grab your coffee and your prayer journal because we are going there with grace, grit, and a little bit of gospel. If you know me, you know. Let's talk about what it really means to pay up and pray up. Let's go. Segment this week into three things. Again, I am Attorney Jay, and this week's episode is titled Pay Up and Pray Up, What You Really Need to Know About Child Support and Alimony. We are breaking down two of the most misunderstood D words in divorce: dollars and dependence, aka child support and alimony. First, we're going to talk about what the judge is looking for. Number two, we're going to talk about the myths that are connected to child support and alimony. And number three, we're going to talk about strategy. All right. Once we close out, after we talk about strategy, I'm going to close out with a special prayer because I understand completely that this process is not an easy one. This process is difficult emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially. So I always want, when I can, to close out with a prayer, words of affirmations, or something to encourage and empower you as you are listening and then taking in what it is that we are talking about. Okay. So let's get right into it. We are going to start talking about is what is the judge looking for? Okay. So let's get one thing clear. This is not a divorce lottery. Divorce is not the lottery. You don't walk into family court and pull a number hoping to strike gold. No, ma'am. The court isn't in the business of blessing or punishing anyone. I always say the laws and the court is really black and white. The people involved is what make us think about the gray area, but it is about black and white. It is the business of balancing. That's what the court is in. The court is in the business of balancing. So let's walk through what judges are really looking for when it comes to child support and alimony. Now, how do we even determine child support? Let's start with child support. The court looks at several things when it comes to child support. This, again, remember that most states, child support is going to be governed by your state law. So there is a statute in your state, and if your state, excuse me, has not completely transferred over to putting it into their statute, you can actually find documents that the court or forms that they've already created that basically breaks down what the court is going to consider when it comes down to child support. So it is not just something in the air where they're just grabbing numbers and trying to figure out. That is not what child support looks like, okay? So let's talk about what the court is going to consider. Here are some of the things they're going to consider. First is the income of both of the parents. So how much does this person make? How much does the other person make? The next thing they are going to consider is who has primary custody. So who does the child or children spend most of the time with? How is that time divided? Is it equally, or is it 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, or maybe 100% with one person, and for one reason or another, the other person is not involved? They're also going to consider what are the child's needs. And when we say what are the child's needs, we are basically saying what is their lifestyle now? Okay. What is their lifestyle now? So things like school, is the child in a public school or a private school? Are they daycare age? Healthcare, is it government assistance, or are one of the parents paying through their employer, or do both parents have insurance policies for the child when it comes to their healthcare? Are they in extracurricular activities? Do they travel on holidays? If they are in sports, do they travel for sports? How are those expenses being divided now? Or just what are those expenses? Their uniform costs, are there competition costs? Is there performance costs? What are the things that your child is doing? Now, that obviously is going to depend on what level. Is it daycare? Is it elementary, middle, or high school? Where is that child? Because if it's someone that is later on in their high school, so maybe there's college tours. What does that expense look like? Because it's real, right? We have to consider that. And trust me, the court is going to consider that. And then when we think of all of these things, what is the formula? Now, like I said, there's a formula that most of the states already have in place. So you're not making anything up. You're not trying to just figure it out. No, the court is going to look at what is the formula, not a feeling, okay? The formula, not the feeling, on how we are going to get to the final number. Now, getting to the final number when it comes to child support, and I'm going to give you an example. Right. So we have on generally, what does a statute look like? It is going to say, how many children does the parent have? So let's just do one child. So if there's one child, the court is then going to say, what is the income of the parents? So let's say parent A, we don't have to put gender, parent A is going makes $10,000 a month. Parent B makes $6,000 a month. Okay? This is A and this is B. There's one child. The court is going to say, based on the 16,000, so we start at the total number and then we come down. Based on one child with parents who make $16,000 combined, the child needs, the one thing they don't do though, they're not necessarily breaking down in the statute whether it's a baby or a senior in high school. That's where the additional things that you put in there, the court then works with those factors based on your child. But the statute itself that talks about what the child gets is going to tell you what that number is. So I am pulling up the number for you, and I'm just going to give you an example from Florida. Okay, so the Florida statute for child support, 10,000. To make it even easier, let's say that the parents equal $10,000 a month and there's only one child. So what is the court going to say the child needs on a monthly basis to be taken care of? And this is even if the breakdown, let's switch it up. If A has 6,000 a month and B has 4,000 a month. The court is saying if it's one child, that is $1,437. Okay, this is a calculation that they've created, and this is what the judge is going to say. Now, understanding that, how are they going to factor in everything about your situation in order to determine what to do? Because remember, it is about a formula for the courts, not feelings. You may feel one that that's too much even for the calculation. You may say, well, I have other bills, I have other things. That's not a problem. The court is basically saying, this is the number that we need for the child. How do we get to this number? Some of the question they're asking is, okay, what is the breakdown of that money? We know that parent A has 6,000, parent B has 4,000. They're going to ask, here is the monthly obligation based on your number, okay? Now, the percent of financial responsibility. Based on the amount that each person make, they're going to spit out a percentage. So they're going to say, hey, parent A is 60%, parent B is 40% responsible for this number that we have here, that 1,400 number that we have. Then they're going to say, okay, the share of the monthly obligation, they have an equation that's put in there, and then they're going to have what your number is for the share. Now, how do we change this number? It is going to be the things that I mentioned: childcare costs, health insurance, uncovered medical expenses like dental, prescriptions, all of those things. They are going to total that up, and then there's another number that is going to be generated. After they generate that number, they're going to continue to go and say, all right, that's what we think needs to happen, but what's actually happening? How much are you actually paying right now? So then there's either going to be a credit on both sides or credit on one side. So if the parent A is already paying everything, let's say that they are in private school or daycare, and parent A is already paying that. Remember, based on parent A's obligation, they're already cutting down the number that the court said they need, because why? They're already paying. Then insurance, they're already paying insurance. Let's say there is the uniform, there's prescription, maybe there's vision, and they're paying that. They're getting credit. So whoever's paying something, you're going to be getting credit. After all of that credit, they're now going to come down to, okay, how much time? When we say time, it's not during the day, it's overnights. How many overnights does each parent have? Based on your overnight that parent has, that's how they're going to determine what is the number that we can credit to each person. Generally, once you spend over 20%, and we're talking about for a whole year, 20% of that year with overnights with your child or children, you will get a credit based on however that percentage is. So if it's 25%, 30%, you're getting credit, but the other parent is also getting credit for that 80, 75, 60% as well. Once all of that is done, because remember, the court believes that there needs to be balance and the child needs to be taken care of. There's going to be two numbers that's created after all of that work is done. There's a number for parent A and a number for parent B. If the number per se just happens to be $500 for parent A and $250 for parent B. So you see, both parents are still responsible for something, but it just happens that parent A number is higher than parent B's number. Okay, so they're going to subtract that, and then the final number is going to be whatever the difference is. In our example, that's $250. So based on not necessarily that full 14, it's the whole equation that they're working through. That's how we get to $250. So it's not some scheme that this person is doing with the court just because it's a woman, the court is scheming. No, there's a whole process. Now, what about if someone's hiding money? That's something different, right? Because if you hide in money, you have to say if you know that the person should have more money, and then the court will put people or things in place to find that money. And I'm just saying, a practice tip: do not hide money, because there are ways to find it. And if it is found, you will be dinged with 100% of the cost. And the court is not playing with that, okay? Zero tolerance on that. Okay, so we get that. Just want people to know, because it's not about a punishment. It is about a lot more than just punishing someone for not being together anymore. Now, what about alimony? Let's talk about alimony. Alimony is not about who hurt who. It's about the length of the marriage, the lifestyle during the marriage, the receiving spouse ability to support themselves. So the person who's seeking the alimony, the ability for them to support themselves, and then the other spouse's capacity to pay. So what does that break down to? It is not about revenge, it's about equity. Let it be equal, let it be right, let it be just, right? The judge is trying to place the scales of justice where they belong. Not too much, not too little, just what's right. Sometimes, especially in our faith circles, we carry guilt over asking for support. But remember this, God calls us to be good stewards, and that means protecting your children and your household. I just wanted to drop that in there. But you may be asking, well, what about alimony? How are they determining that? Because I just feel that's just directly against me. That is not directly against anyone. There has to be a need. So if you guys are making the exact same amount, been making the exact same amount, or if this one person makes more money, they cannot ask for alimony from the other person because why? It's going to fail. What is the court looking for? The court is looking for a need for you to get money, get the alimony, and then the ability for the other person to actually pay you the alimony. So if we don't have those two things, the alimony conversation is done. You could put it in your divorce paperwork, but that conversation is done. Now, if for some reason that is not the case and the person asking really needs it, I want you to think in your mind, this is what the court is thinking. If the person needed and the other person have the ability to pay, how are we going to make this balance? How are we going to make this right? And that is why there's not just one form of alimony. Your need will determine the alimony that you get. Is it an alimony for the rest of your life because you guys have been together? Because remember, a big thing is how long you've been married. So if you've been married for 20 plus years, 30 years, you don't have the ability to turn back around and go get a new profession, get a new trade, or have that same lifestyle that you had during the marriage. And it wasn't just because you didn't want to, it was because of the marriage that you guys made a decision together that you were going to perform a certain function within the marriage that cause you to not make as much as you can to sustain yourself. So and that person will get for the rest of their lives, unless one, they pass away, they get remarried or start living in the home with a new partner, that's when you can get the alimony cut off. Okay. So those are the things to get it cut off. Now, what about if their circumstance change? So the other spouse or the ex-spouse find out after alimony is already out that, hey, this person ended up winning the lottery, or this person ended up landing a job as a consultant or whatever it is. They're now bringing in money. You can go right back to the court, get a modification and say, listen, the circumstance is not the same. So this person we need to revisit the numbers and reduce it or remove it completely. So you are not pigeonholed. You are not stuck in having to continue to pay even if the person's situation change. Okay. So that's something that I definitely want you to know and for you to remember that that's not what it's about. So they're going to determine, do you need to go back to school? How much time is it going to take? Are you going to get a certificate, a degree? How much time is that going to take? And guess what? That's the amount of time you're going to get the alimony. And again, the same way how we talked about with child support, there is going to be a formula to determine the amount that you get. We don't want spouse A who has to pay to now be in a worse off position. They can't get a new place to live. They can't pay rent, can't pay mortgage, can't pay car. We don't want that, right? That is not the case. And another thing, another practice tip, do not underemploy yourself. Because if you have a degree to be a medical doctor and you're like, listen, I'm getting a divorce, so I'm going to quit my job as a doctor and I'm just going to go and get a job at a school, like a small school teaching some medical subjects. The court is not going to accept that. They're going to say you are underemployed and I am going to say you owe at the level that you can make. So guess what? You're going to go right back and go get that job. Other than that, you're going to be in a worse off situation. So it's not worth it. Now, why are we not going to do that? We are not going to do that because, again, we understand that it is not a matter of revenge. It is about equity. It is about stewardship. Everything we're talking about as a child of God, you have to remember that we are stewards over what it is that God give us. So if it is our families, it is our finances, anything God entrusts you with, are you a good steward with that? And the fact that you guys are no longer together does not mean that that person is not connected to you in a way where you still need to be a good steward, whether it's your children or that person. God called us to be good stewards, and that means protecting children and your household. Provision is not prideful, it's purposeful. We have to make provision so we don't end up in a worse off position, okay? You are not asking for luxury, you're asking for stability. There is no shame in that. And if you are the person, and there are a lot of women who end up making more money, and you're in that other spectrum, you still have to keep that in mind. It's about stability, it's about equity, it's about stewardship. All right, now part two, segment two, the myths that we have, the myths we've married. Okay, so you didn't just marry the person, you married the myths. You see it on social media, you have it in conversation with other people, and that is what child support and alimony is all about, right? So people love to make it about themselves and not about what it really is. So now listen, we've all heard the whispers, the group chat lawyers, the aunties who think they know everything about the system. But today, let's break down some of the most common myths about child support and alimony and throw them out like old clothes that no longer fit who you are becoming. Myth number one, listen up, listen up. Um, it can be men, it can be women, but we know that we hear this mainly with the myth. It usually runs with women. And people say, if he doesn't pay, he doesn't see the kids. We've heard it. This is not new to you, but I am here to let you know that this is false. Child support and parenting time are separate legal issues. They are not the same issue, okay? Yes, it may be dealing with the same people, but you cannot keep children away from the person because they are not paying. Whether you're the father and you're saying she needs to pay her child support to see the kid, or you're the mother, doesn't matter. As a parent, it is a false statement, it is a false belief that child support and parenting time are the same issue. It is not. Unless the court says that the other person is unfit, they still have the right for their visitation, even if that person is behind on payments. And yes, it feels unfair, but it's not about the person. It's about stability for your children. Think of it like train tracks. Child support is one train, visitation is another train, it's another track, right? We have two tracks. If one track breaks, you fix it. You don't derail the whole train, you don't stop trains from moving. No, you go ahead and make sure that that's fixed so that everything else continues to flow, okay? So we are not going to say that until you pay, you are not going to see the children. No, you go to court for that. You let the court know that the court ordered child support and that person is not paying. The court will make that person pay. Their license can be suspended. Their passport can be, they're going to have a hold on their passport if they try to travel. So there's other things in place that will affect that person not paying child support, especially if they rely on their license for work or passport to travel. But listen, you cannot keep the children away for lack of payment. Another thing is this person is living off my money. Well, let's clear that up. Alimony is not a prize, it is a bridge, just like I discussed earlier. It's temporary support for the spouse who needs time to rebuild, or it is for the lifetime up to the circumstances I mentioned for someone where you've been married for the requisite or the required amount of time. So a lot of places, 17 years, 20 years, and more. Okay. So again, it is a bridge to get the person from where they were to where they need to be. We are not going to have people divorcing. Someone have the capacity to pay, the other person have the need, and we have them out on the streets. That doesn't make sense, and that's not how the court will look at it or allow it to go. If someone supported your dreams raised the kids, and made sacrifices, they deserve time to stand again. Okay? Let's be fair, and let's also be rational about this subject. Even though I know it's a touchy one, we still have to be rational and clear about this subject. Okay? And the next thing is, the number 3 is child support pays for her spa days, or pay for my spa days, right? First of all, the money itself is for food, housing, gas, childcare, soccer cleats, not nails, not spa day, not hair, not clothing for yourself, but child support is for the child. Both parties need to understand that. The person receiving need to understand that, and the person that is providing needs to understand that. Okay? And for those of us that are believers, as a person of faith, you are not asking to be kept. You are asking to be covered. There is no shame in requiring what is necessary for your child to thrive. Okay? You can be gracious and still have boundaries. You can forgive and still file requesting child support and or alimony. Being on your kingdom agenda doesn't mean being quiet. Now, there's some people who let pride come in, and due to their pride, or I don't want this person to feel like I need them, and just that pridefulness, you end up not even asking for child support or alimony, knowing that you need it. Like, let's talk about that. Don't let pride stop you from being in a position where you can be provided for, your children can be provided for. It doesn't matter, because especially if both of you are believers, there's no reason to separate God from this process. Okay? You cannot separate God from this process. Pride has no room for upkeep, because you need to be covered. You are not asking to be kept. You need to be covered. You need to be able to not look at shame, but look at what is necessary for your child to be sustained and provided for, and the way that it would have been if you all were together. Asking for support does not cancel your anointing. Let's take that out as well. Oh, well, if God got me, God said he got me. No, God also asked for us to be wise. God also asked for us to be knowledgeable. So if you know better, you do better. You cannot say, oh, God got me, and then you end up not having anything. You don't have the means to get it, or the capacity to get it, as opposed to having that gap bridge for you so that you can get on your feet. But if you do it this way, you'll end up in a worse off position. That is not godly. Okay? So support does not cancel your anointing. It confirms that you are walking in wisdom. Okay? So no more whispering about support like it's a sin, because being broke doesn't make you holy, and being blessed doesn't make you a burden. You, again, be gracious, have the boundaries, forgive, still go ahead and file for the thing that you need. Okay? Because there still has to be a need, and there has to be an ability to support that need. Now, we've been talking about child support, we've been talking about alimony, and the way that it's going to be determined, some of the things that these thoughts that we have in our minds, our perspective on it, that is actually making things worse, that's making us divorce the same way that everyone before us did. That was unhealthy, and it doesn't foster a healthy relationship moving forward for the family. Because remember what I always say, we are still a family. We are a community, so the two people divorcing should not be enemies at the end of the day. You have to remember that we need each other. We did not meet each other for no reason. We still need each other. So again, we understand that today, there's a lot of other topics we're going to cover on another day, but today we're focusing on child support and alimony. Before we move forward to our part 3 strategy, here's a break to tell you about our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by the Sejukista Firm. Celebrating a decade of excellence, the Sejukista Firm provides award-winning estate planning and business legal services in Florida and Georgia. Secure your legacy with trusted expertise. Visit us at thesgfirm.com. Divorce Lab Institute. Step into healing with purpose. Divorce Lab Institute is redefining the divorce process with the Healer program, which provide faith-centered guidance, strategic support, and real transformation. Divorce differently. Start your journey today at thelabinstitute.com. Ally Prestige Apparel. Style with significance. Ally Prestige Apparel celebrates and empowers paralegals and nurses with high-quality, meaningful fashion. Join the movement. AllyPrestigeApparel.com. Now, back to this week's episode.
So this is part 3. Let's talk about strategy, okay? Let's talk some strategy on child support and alimony. All right. Now that we removed the shame and cleared the fog, let's talk strategy. Because this isn't just spiritual, it's structural. You got to know how to move smart, stay covered, and protect your peace. Step 1. What is step 1? We are going to document everything. When I say everything, what am I talking about? Parenting time. How much time are you spending with your child? If you got to do that week by week, day by day, it is important. It is necessary. Go ahead and write that down. What about expenses? What you are spending on groceries, even if you have to start doing your groceries separate, because listen, this is real life. Go ahead and buy what you buy for yourself and then buy that separate thing for the children so that you can submit those receipts and say, this is what I pay for groceries. When you are going to pay any fees, school fees, anything, make sure that you are documenting that. Do not pay cash for anything because you won't have a record of it. Use a card, use Cash App, use Zelle, anything that you can document, and then either download one of those apps that allow you to categorize your receipts, or just use a plain old Excel spreadsheet or a table on Word, okay? And put in the type of expense, put in the date, put in the amount. If you have multiple children and they have different expenses, you can have one for each of the children, okay? So that when it comes time to show your proof, and when it comes time to negotiate, to be at mediation, you know your numbers. You should not be guessing numbers. You should not be flipping through your phone trying to figure it out. You should not be trying to call and text. No. If that person is going to pay you, you put in your records whatever they gave you, whatever they paid, and you send a follow-up like, hey, receive this for this. That is how you document everything. So I'm not just saying, make sure it's somewhere that you can access it. No, be strategic. Make sure that you have everything down. Your communications are important because people love to forget what you talked about when they feel that it doesn't fit their narrative anymore. So you need to be very clear as to what you communicated about and what is the best way. Listen, put on your listening ears. We're back in elementary school. Put on your listening ears. Write this down. Rewind, pause, write down each and every word that I'm telling you. There are apps that the courts have approved for communication between parents. Let's get off of WhatsApp. Let's get off of regular text messaging, and you don't even have to email generally. All of the functions you have on your regular texting, all of the different things you use, and email can be done through an app. There's one that's called Our Family Wizard, and search Our Family Wizard on whatever search platform you have, and then put in competitors or similar to Our Family Wizard, or whatever state you're in, or your county. Go ahead and search what are the approved family law apps in my state or in my county, okay? And Our Family Wizard is popular. It's been around. It's been accepted by a lot of states. So that's why you can just start there and then find yours, or just use that, okay? What does that do? When I say document everything, if you use an app like Our Family Wizard, one, you can text, you can send pictures, you can send emails, everything through that app, right? If the person say they don't remember, the court is going to accept that, no question. Now, does the court accept the WhatsApp log? Do they accept those things? Yes. But the person, through their attorney, can challenge those things. The ones that the court have already approved, there's no real challenge against that. They can get an attorney can make all type of arguments, but most likely they're not going to be able to come up against it. That is why you got to be strategic. We have to communicate anyway, right? We have to exchange information anyway. Why not use something that I already know the court is going to rely on? And then it looks good for you that you're ahead of the game. You already know, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this right. I'm thinking about this. I'm not being emotional. I am clear as to how this is going to get done. Even if you're in the midst of a divorce right now, you can do that. And I also want to say for those where maybe you're on the other side of your divorce, it's already final, but you're facing some of the things that I'm talking about. You can always ask for a modification. Okay. So don't think that, oh, I should have, and now I'm stuck. You're not stuck. There's changes. The court keeps jurisdiction. So if anything changes, you can still come back to the court for assistance. Now, listen, screenshot. So if you get one of these apps or you're waiting to get the app, screenshots is so important. And listen, I am not playing, I'm not kidding, but screenshots save souls, okay? Any spreadsheets, they say settlements. So go ahead and make sure that you rewind it, look at the script because we do have the script of it if you can't listen to it out loud, and make sure that you are documenting everything. Now, step two, don't be afraid to ask. You are not begging, you are advocating. You are now an advocate for yourself and you are an advocate for your children. Okay. So you are going to file for child support, including alimony in your petition if it is appropriate. No pride. Okay, we are being good stewards. We are not begging, we are advocating. Okay, make your needs clear. Be specific and back it up with documentation. How are you going to back it up with documentation? We go back to step one. We have documented everything. That's why when I say that I need this amount for the child's sports, I need this for chess, I need this for dance, for swimming, there's no question. I need this for food, I need this for communication, because why? They're on my line and this is the amount that I pay for their line. Very clear. Okay, you are not begging, don't be afraid to ask, because if you don't ask, you're going to end up without. You got to be very clear on what it is that you need, not just, oh, I want alimony because the person made me mad. No, that's not what it is. Do they have a need? Do you have a need? And do they have the ability to pay? If they do, make sure that you are clear. Yes, like I said in the book, Divorce Like a Boss, the ultimate tactical guide to end a toxic marriage and fulfill your purpose. Emotions are real. Feeling emotional is real. It is okay. But make sure when it's time to show up for things like this, when it's time to file your paperwork or amend your paperwork, if you didn't include this filing before our conversation today, that emotions is not a part of that conversation, but clarity is a part of that conversation. Wisdom is a part of that conversation. So when you are requesting what you're requesting, make sure you're doing it with clarity, you're doing it with a clear conscience, and you're doing it with wisdom. Okay? Be specific, be clear, and make sure you back it up, because at the end of the day, closed mouths don't get fed, and unpaid people don't get peace. You hear me? Let me repeat that for the people in the back. Closed mouths don't get fed, and unpaid people don't get peace. Now, step three, request a modification if it is needed. So even after we do all of this, after you get this done, let's say your circumstances change. So like I had mentioned, maybe you lost your job. Maybe the person got a promotion or you got a promotion. File for a modification. We are going to tell the court, listen, things have changed. My circumstances have changed. this person's circumstantial, they used to make this, but I know now they've been promoted, so they are making $2,000 or $3,000 more a month. Yes, that does change the child support. It does. Why? Because the child's standard of living should fit the income of both parents. This is not you begging. Again, listen, life is not static. So when things change, that means yes, until your children age out, until you no longer need it, that means that the support should change as well. So if life isn't static, that means support orders should not be static as well. If something shifts financially, go back and request that change. Don't suffer in silence. It does not make sense. Do not suffer in silence. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 says, to everything there is a season. This may be your season to shift, restructure, and rebuild. Walk in that grace and follow that motion. You don't just deserve peace, you deserve provision with purpose. Protect what matters. Don't let pride talk you out of your promise. So now, what have we talked about? Just to do an overview, we talked about what the judge is looking for when it comes to child support and alimony. We also talked about the myths that are attached to child support and alimony. Then we just finished talking about strategy. I gave you 3 steps. This can go on forever, but I want to keep the time good and I want to keep you engaged. So the 3 steps we talked about. Before we even talk about the 3 steps, let's just go over those myths again. 1, if the person doesn't pay child support, they can't see the kids. Not true. Those are 2 separate legal issues. The person is living off my money. No, alimony is a transition. It is not a luxury. It is about stewardship, okay? We need to make sure that we are not leaving our people worse off out of revenge, out of anger, out of hurt, wherever it's stemming from. That's not what we're doing. We are going to do what we need to make sure that we are being good stewards over what God gave us. And number 3, child support is for a spa day, nails, hair, a new tires for the car. No, that's not what it's for, okay? Child support is for food, housing, gas, childcare, soccer cleats, not any of those things that we've talked about. We talked about strategy. What are the 3 strategies? Somebody repeat it with me. First one, I said, verse 1, look at that. I'm thinking I'm preaching. Step 1, document everything. And remember, go ahead and look for an app to communicate with so that your paper trail is going to be accepted by the court. Our Family Wizard is what I talked about, but there's so many more. There's one called Talking Parents. There's a lot out there, okay? Number 2, don't be afraid to ask. You are not begging, you are advocating. Don't be afraid to ask for child support. Don't be afraid to ask for alimony. Make sure there's that need there for alimony and the ability to pay, and back up anything that you ask for. And step 3, if you didn't ask for these things and you have an order right now, go ahead and request a modification if it's needed, if circumstances has changed. If circumstances has changed, go ahead and request that order. Lost a job, got a promotion, won the lottery, going to move. And we're going to talk about moving. So that's going to be another episode where people are trying to relocate with kids and all of that. We're going to talk about that as well. Okay. Whew, okay. This one was for the grown people only. Okay. Not those that still stuck on petty, not those that are completely overwhelmed by emotion that we can't hear. This is for the grown person that is ready to move forward in their purpose. Child support, alimony, those aren't just court terms. They are pieces of your peace. They are about making sure your future isn't forfeited because of your past. God is not only the God of your healing, He's the God of your housing, your health, and yes, your household finances as well. Provision isn't petty. Stewardship isn't selfish. Let me say that again. provision isn't petty, stewardship isn't selfish, and asking for what is fair is not a betrayal of your beliefs. It is a reflection of your value and your vision for what comes next. As you know, I am a licensed minister. I always talk about God. You heard scripture. So when I can give you an affirmation, when I can empower you or pray for you, that's what I'm going to do. And this episode has led me to feel like I need to do a prayer for you, the listener, who this resonated with, who needs to be freed, who needs to do the steps that we talked about or facing the steps that we talk about. So let's pray. Father God, I thank you for every listener who pressed play today. For the man and woman torn between pride and provision, give them peace. For the mother unsure if she can make it another month, send her help. For every daughter or son of yours navigating courtrooms in custody, remind them you are still their defender, still their provider, still their God. In Jesus' precious name, amen. If this episode bless you, do two things. First, share it with someone who needs to know that you are not crazy for wanting clarity, that they are not crazy for wanting clarity as well. Second, leave a review and tag me when you post. Let's make these conversations louder than the shame that the culture is trying to put on people that are divorcing. If you're walking through this and you need to direction or healing resources, hit me up in the DMs or visit my website, attorney, the full word attorney, the letter J, coach.com or DLAB, so DLAB institute.com. They have the healing resources. They have an amazing healer program that walks you through things that you can't even think of with facing divorce and navigating divorce. Okay. You've been listening to Faces of Divorce with me, Attorney J, where we divorce differently with faith, fire, and a future in mind. Divorce is a detour, not your defeat. God still has plans for you. Your children still need you, and your purpose still works, even when the marriage doesn't. Until next time, keep your head high, your prayers deep, and your paperwork in order. You've got this. This is Faces of Divorce. See you next time.